Hey everyone, welcome to another Bury Me in Starfields behind the scenes Monday update. This one's number 12 and dated 8/15/22. Titling this one Finding My Way. So I just got back from a run. It's my first run in about a month and a half. And I've been really focused on work, especially since I got back from San Diego. And it's good to be excited about work. It's good to be engaged, but I have a tendency to be hyper-focused and very, all or nothing. And so since I got back, since I've been so focused on work, like everything has fallen by the wayside. No exercise. I was learning Norwegian. I haven't taken a lesson, since I left for San Diego. Or actually, I did take a couple while I was in San Diego, but nothing since I've gotten back. So, just all these little things that you do in your life that make you a complete, rounded person, when I get really focused on work, all of that stuff tends to get sidelined. And it's the same thing with everything. When I first got into exercise, it was all about exercise. When I first got into, the learning language, it was all about learning language. And anytime I get really into work, and it's just been the story of my life, every time I get really into work, work, sleep, eat, work, sleep, eat, rinse and repeat, and that's it. It's been the way I've been since I started drawing comics 20 plus years ago, and it's not healthy. And so I'm trying to break that habit. And so, I woke up this morning, I finally got my schedule back onto a normal-ish kind of, get up in the morning kind of thing, instead of getting up at like 5 o'clock in the evening because I didn't go to bed until, noon. And so hopefully I can keep my schedule carousel stuck in this, sort of getting up early in the morning so I can get up and go run before it's too hot out. And, so that's what happened this morning. I did get up this morning. It was beautiful. It was like 79 degrees. like 79 degrees in August. I'm like, whatever, dude. I'm going for a run. So I went for a run, feel really good. And now it's time to get into the update for Bury Me in Starfields. And this one was... The run actually was good this morning because I was kind of struggling with what I would write in this update. It is kind of an existential question as to, what exactly are these updates for? I think it's been pretty clear that these updates have been more of a behind-the-scenes diary of my process of making this comic, and less of a how-to, more of a, so this is what I learned this week. Because, as mentioned before, most of this project is new territory for me. Like, I have a lifetime's worth of studying storytelling, writing, color theory, editing, stuff like that. But I only have pro-level practical experience in the actual drawing part of the whole thing. And there's a difference between having intellectual knowledge and practical experience. I've talked about it a lot. It's a bit of a recurring theme in these updates. It's a concept that I don't think is hard to grasp, but, to continue with the theme, until you're in it, it's an abstraction that you can have some measure of empathy for, but you don't really get it. Which brings me to this week's progress report. I'm still working on that first page. I'm not gonna lie. A big part of wondering what I was gonna write for this update was the crushing weight of shame I'm feeling about this one page taking this long to finish. There were a ton of mitigating circumstances, but the fact is that after 2 weeks, I'm still on this one page. And, that's prompted a flurry of panic thoughts in me over the last week, not the least of which is that if this is going to be the norm, it's going to be an absolute nightmare from a scheduling standpoint. I mean, like, and at its most panic-inducing, is this something I can actually do? I mean, because you can't work on one page for 2 weeks. I mean, it just can't happen. Like, you can schedule it out so that, it can happen, and that's great. You know what I mean? Like you can work a schedule to where, like, okay, it's going to take Eric 2 weeks to get a page done. We're going to need to have like the X many in the can so that when we first start putting these out there aren't like huge delays. But that delay is getting it out there, and that becomes, starts to become a financial concern. Like, how long can I go without any possibility of monetary recompensation? You know what I mean? Like this is an artistic endeavor. This is something that I'm trying to feed my soul for and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping to make a living doing this. You know what I mean? So it becomes that, question of like, is this something that's sustainable? You know what I mean? Anyway, I digress. But it's terrifying stuff. I mean, like, truly terrifying, because this is something that I've committed to. This is my life, and you're staring down the barrel at something that this is just not something that can happen. But that's always been the point of these first two shorts. We've talked about it in almost every one of these updates. Like, just get some practical application under your belt before we start talking about hard deadlines, timelines, release dates, things like that. These are real-world test beds to not only get some real-world data in, like how long these stories will take to get completed, but also to try and learn some troubleshooting skills. Like when we get into these areas where life comes in, you know what I mean? Like we always used to talk about it on Rex Monday, like, like I'd be killing myself trying to get these pages done. And, my partner would be understandably getting a little bit, upset because they were taking longer than necessary. And there'd be like the thing, it'd be like, oh, well, this came up or that came up, life happened, emergencies happened, and that's why we're delayed. And the thing is like, and this is something we talked about a lot, is like, life is life. It's always going to be like that. There's never going to be a situation where everything is like easy and just right down the line. You need to be prepared for when emergencies happen. Delays are going to happen, but you need to be in a position where if you hit a delay, it's not world shattering. And so that's where we're at right now, is trying to get some of these like real world data and those troubleshooting skills to where like, okay, so we're in the deep end. How can we get out? You know what I mean? And that's the kind of thing that you can only get with doing it for real, So that's the thing, you know what I mean? It's trying to get all of this done and get as much, practical application experience in before I start making promises that I may not be able to keep, or more accurately, when I start making promises, I'm doing it from a very confident position. And so if an emergency does come up, if some kind of life-shattering thing happens, then a delay isn't the norm. It's not something that you just expect. It's like, oh, hey guys, like this really tragic thing happened or whatever, and so we're going to be late a little bit. Right now, the only promise I've made is that this is a real thing, and you will eventually be able to read stories about my Deep Star Ranger. I mean, eventually. No matter how long it takes. That's the commitment I've made. I'm going to do at least a few of these, and then we will, circle back and see if this is something that can actually be a career or if this needs to just be something that like I'm happy I did it, and now time to go back to freelance or whatever, you know what I mean? Like maybe this is just too much work. I don't know. We'll find out. But for now, this is what I've committed to do. So that's the only promise I've made so far. Hopefully, but the point of these shorts, the point of getting this real world experience under me is so that I can start making promises about like, hey, on date such and such, you'll get to read the new episode, something like that. And so that might make you ask, what did you learn this week, Eric? And the answer is quite a bit. So part of the reason I'm still on this page is that I'm now on my 4th major rewrite of this story. And this is where I'm learning just a ton about editing myself. I mean, as much as this project is almost designed to be a self-indulgent romp for my pleasure, that I hope resonates with an audience, but that's honestly a secondary concern. I mean, just being up front. There's a limit to self-indulgence. There has to be a limit because, yes, it's admittedly meant to be self-indulgent, but I'm me and my name is going to be on this thing, so it also needs to be good, or at least as good as I can make it. So not only am I thinking about story beats and plot holes and characterization, but I'm also dipping my toes into editing it down to as lean a thing as I can make it. Which is hard. Who knew that editing was an actual job that professionals do? I've mentioned I haven't felt like I was standing on solid ground with this particular story from the jump. I mean, I did the third rewrite and the ground got firmer. I got into the 4th and it firmed up even more, although a giant sinkhole formed when I did that 4th rewrite. And I'm still trying to fill that in. We'll see if that works out or not. But I've had serious questions about whether or not I'm trying to polish a turd with this story. Like if this story was just a funny little idea, but not something that should actually be built out into a longer form, or even be done at all. You know what I mean? Maybe it was just a funny idea and that's it. And it should just be, just stay that way. You know what I mean? Kind of like an SNL short, you know what I mean? Like some skits are just meant to be skits. They can't be turned into a movie. You know what I mean? Like that might be what this is. I don't know. We're going to find out. I mean, I've considered chucking it many times during this last week. I mean, like I can't tell you how many times I've been like, dude, this ain't it, But I made the decision, and I continue to make the decision to stick it out to completion because I want this particular experience. I want to see if it's something I can coerce into being awesome. And I want this problem-solving experience. I want to see where the line is, like where's the line? What's the cutoff? Where do you go? How far do you take it before you go, you know what, this just isn't going to work. Time to start over, you know what I mean? Or just not even start over, just like let's just go on to the next thing. You know what I mean? And that's what, if you're in the weeds, you do. I mean, like I do have the option just to just step out of the weeds. You know what I mean? Like I don't need to cut through the weeds. I can just say I'm done. You know what I mean? But that's part of this entire process. You know what I mean? Like finding out how to work your way through the weeds. Like, can you do this? You know what I mean? Like, because I want to see where I end up with it. You know what I mean? Like, and hopefully I'm triumphant at the end and super proud of it. But even if I'm not, there will be valuable lessons to gain from finishing this short. So I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to finish it. We're going to get it done. And hopefully it's awesome. You know what I mean? But it might not be. I'm just going to be straight up honest. I mean, like I don't have the confidence that I normally have with my stories on this one. You know what I mean? Like I'm working through it. And that's the thing though, we're formed in crucibles, you know what I mean? We're not formed in fields of honey and light. Like not everything is easy. We find our character and we find our abilities and our skills and our problem solving skills when problems arise. If we never have to work through anything, if everything just comes easy, then like, you know, like you're not actually learning anything. You're not actually like applying anything. It's just kind of happening. You know what I mean? And like, and there's something to be said for that. You know what I mean? It's that whole thing of like talent versus practice. You know what I mean? Like you can have raw talent, but if you never practice, you don't, you know, you're never going to get to that next level. You know what I mean? Raw talent will only take you so far. And that's kind of the same idea here. You know what I mean? Like if everything's just coming to you and it's easy, then like, yeah, that's great. But you're never going to hit that next level because you never applied yourself. You never had a problem to solve. You never had something that like to form your character. You know what I mean? Like you can't just hit a rough patch and quit. You know? You need to work through it. But also working through those rough patches teaches you when you're on the right track, where working through the trouble is the right thing, and when it's just not worth it anymore. You know what I mean? Where like, because there are times when you need to just like be like, okay, I'm done. This is not working and it's not worth the effort to fix. So let's just start over with something new. You know what I mean? And if you never work through a problem, if you never, you know, like get through something that you're not entirely confident of, you don't have that triumphant feeling when you actually fucking nail it. But you also never understand, you know what I mean, that like the difference between a difficulty and an unsolvable problem. You know what I mean? And so like that's where we're kind of heading with this. From the art standpoint on this story, and admittedly we're still on the first page, I'm less discouraged. I mean, I knew from the jump that these crowd scenes would be a bitch to complete from a time standpoint. It's just the nature of the beast, and in terms of the drawing, it was actually better than I thought it was going to be. You know, so yay. And this first page, this setup page, is the most intense of all the pages. It's the one that you see, you know, you're getting the vibe of it. You know what I mean? Like I need to put you in the place. And then as we get into the story, it's less important to show all the crowds because like the crowds are in your mind. You know what I mean? Like you've seen them, you feel them around you. You know what I mean? So like you're never going to forget where you are. If you've done a good setup, you're never going to forget where you are. You're never going to forget like the setting. You know what I mean? That's why establishing shots are so important. You know what I mean? Like, because they stick in your mind as the rest of the story goes on. You know what I mean? So this has a really great establishing shot. And then it has like several panels full of, you know, of continuing establishing. But like, as we get into the next few pages, there's not as much need for me to continue to do this kind of crowd work. It's there. I can kind of allude to it. I don't have to show like these intense, crazy big crowds for you to know where you're at, and you're already in the vibe. You know what I mean? So like it's going to be easier going. It's downhill from there. You know, from here on the rest of these pages. So I'm less discouraged from that point. I mean. The page actually, you know, it actually wasn't that bad to draw, you know what I mean, from a penciling and inking standpoint. So that's cool, you know what I mean. It'll be easier as we get further into the story. So I'm looking forward to that. The coloring was, you know, I hesitate to say eye-opening because I knew it was going to be kind of rough, but it is taking longer than I anticipated. And part of that's down to making some decisions. Like, My friend Chris is in this. My friend Ben is in this, and myself and Yvette. Obviously, we're the principals of these panels. We're the ones that you're supposed to be focusing on, and these are huge crowd scenes. So like you have to figure out a way to make your principals pop. You know what I mean? Like you need to make a way. Find a way to focus your attention on the people that you want to be looking at in these masses of people and things going on. So I made the decision that Ben is in a black t-shirt, and his black t-shirt says band shirt, because I thought that was funny, because he wears band shirts sometimes, and I was like, I didn't want to try and fit. I just thought it'd be funny if he was wearing a generic shirt that said band shirt. And total aside, I may actually make a shirt that just says band shirt for my DeviantArt. We'll see, or my Design by Humans page. So you may in the next couple days be able to go on to my Design by Humans and buy a generic shirt that just says band shirt. But it's black, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to really help him stand out. Hopefully the band shirt part of it, helps him stand out. But myself and Chris and Yvette are the only ones in the crowds in the panels that we're in that are wearing, sort of warm or, reddish or orangish colors. There's one exception that you can find that's kind of a Easter egg for like one specific. It's just something that made me laugh, so I threw it in there, and it'll be interesting to see if anybody picks up on it. But maybe not. It might just be something that made me giggle, and that's just fine as it is. But anyway. But we're the only ones in the panels that we're in that are wearing these sort of warm tones, and that's to pop us out, you know what I mean, to draw your focus in amongst these, sea of people. And the other thing that we're doing, and it becomes a little bit of a headache when you have to color all these other people in shades of green or blue or purple. It might not sound like it's like that big a deal, but it is. It's kind of like, okay, this is the only colors. These are the only colors that I have to choose from, you know what I mean? And then taking brown hair or, whatever, and making it sort of cool and or washed out so that it's not drawing focus itself, and then also sort of washing out the background colors to further pop, you know what I mean? So you may notice as you're looking at the page that Yvette, myself, Chris, and Ben, we're the only ones that are sort of we're a little more saturated than everybody than the rest, and that's to hopefully pop, you know what I mean, the principles out so that you can focus on us and easily pick us out in the panels, in and amongst these massive crowds. So I'm still in a realm of flat coloring, but you do these things where when you're flatting a page, you don't really worry about color picking. You know what I mean? You're just specifically just kind of throwing color into areas that need to be delineated. So this isn't flatting. This is flat coloring. There's a lot of color picking. There's a lot of color theory going into it. So it's taking longer than it would if you were just strictly flatting a page. And then also doing the thing, like I said. Washing out the background colors so that you're kind of trying to do. And if you look at old school comics, they do old school flat colored comics. They do these weird things where they color an entire group of people one color. You know what I mean? A dull, purple gray or something like that, so that they were there, but they weren't drawing focus. And so this is kind of that same idea, you know what I mean? It's washing them out, washing out the color a little bit and making them all in, cooler colors so that the warmer colors of myself, Chris, Ben, and Yvette pop. And it's kind of that same idea, coloring the entire crowd, a dull one color, purple gray or something like that, without actually doing that. And so, so it is taking a little bit longer, and I still have to go back in. I'm still like, I'm gonna stick with one, with flat color on the backgrounds because I like the way it looks. But I am going to get back into that, what you've seen of some of the illustrations that I've done recently, the header pop art and the one short that I did, where I'm doing a highlight, midtone, shadow, like strictly 3-color, sometimes 4, but usually strictly 3-color, sort of cell shaded approximation for the principles in the thing. So like everything in the book except for, the people that are going to be focused on will be flat colored, and then everybody that's important will be, this sort of 3-color cell shaded. And because I think it looks pretty, I like the look of it. And it's one of these things also where everything that I've done up to this point, I think there may be like 1 or 2 books that I've ever done that have been colored in a sort of a cell shaded method. Almost everything else has been in a kind of a modeled, sort of that new school airbrushy coloring, format. That's been, the vogue for, the last 20, 30 years. Including my own stuff. I mean, this is, me doing like the flatter, more cell shaded stuff. That's new. You know what I mean? And there's been, I've even since, I love the way that Jeremy colored Rex Mundi, but I would be lying to you if I said that I didn't get some feedback from people that said like it washed out my line work and whatnot. And I remember also having a conversation with my friend Josh Dysart once about some of my work, and I showed him some pages, and he was like, dude, this makes me wonder like how this would be colored. And then I colored it, and he was like, oh well, I guess that's how, you know what I mean? But the comments always stuck with me, you know what I mean? It's like I've always had these kind of, these like this feedback about, the coloring of my work and not really necessarily fitting and or washing out the line work or something. And I mean, I decided to try the cell shading thing from an expedience standpoint because it's quicker for me. But I gotta say, I think it's the right way. I think it's the thing. I think it works. You know what I mean? Like for the first time, like I'm looking at my work and I'm going, no, that's how it should have always been. You know what I mean? So I'm actually pretty stoked on that. And I mean, this will be something I'm going to come back to in a couple minutes. But yeah, it's one of these things where it's like, like the needs of the work leading to a happy expediency, you know what I mean? Like that's awesome. Sometimes, working harder isn't the best way to do it because it takes a lot longer to color the pages the way I used to try and color them. But this is a spot where, I'm starting to wonder if down the line, maybe if I get to a point where I can afford it, bringing a flatter on, might not be the worst idea, to help me. Because if I go in and I've got the pages flatted, again, the flatter isn't necessarily picking colors. You know what I mean? They're just literally trying to put unique colors down so that they're easily picked and manipulated, like the areas. And if you know the process, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know the process, I don't know that I have the time to like really get into it right here, but suffice it to say that like say my face in the last panel of this page, they would go in and like all those little, like my face would be one color, and then I could easily just go in and pick it on whatever program, and then I can just adjust the color, you know what I mean, to whatever I want it to be. It would make things easier. So that might be something that down the line, I can't do it right now. Right now, like literally, I have no money to bring anybody else on board. So this is just me. It's a just me project, and so it is what it is for right now. But going forward, as if I get to a point where I start making some money on this and I can bring on some help, that's definitely a spot where maybe bringing someone on board might not be a bad thing. And I gotta say, like, this is the thing that I'm the most stoked on. I mean, like, I am so proud of this page. No matter how long it's taken, I am so proud of this page because, like, I feel like I look at this page and I can hear that dull roar of the crowd of San Diego. You know what I mean? Like, in these pages, I feel like I'm there, and I hope that you do too. Because, I mean, like, that's. I mean, like, I don't want to break my arm, like, patting myself on the back, you know, but I really feel like I transported the reader to the con. You know what I mean? Like, if you've never been to the con, like, this is what it's like. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud of that. So anyway, and so speaking of drawing these crowds, like, I did in my fourth rewrite, my fourth major rewrite, I mean, God, Jesus, determined that I needed to show some of how Yvette came to be at San Diego Comic-Con in 2022 rather than, like, have it be all in dialogue, you know? Because, you know, it's after all, this is, like, even though this is a non-canon LARC, it's still the first longer form presentation of Bury Me in Starfields that I've presented to you all. So it should have at least some of what the actual series is about, you know, like what it's going to look like, what it's going to be about, you know, some like space and the Tranquility Runner and, you know, spatial anomalies, you know, things like that, you know, space and sci-fi, you know, not just a dude standing around in really good cosplay at San Diego. So there are a few pages, at least, that are, you know, on the Tranquility Runner and not in the crowds at San Diego. And so this is a spot where, you know, again, where, you know, sort of the needs of the story have the happy side effect of alleviating some production pain because, like, when I'm drawing those pages, I don't have to draw the crowds and they'll go much, much faster. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to be... And, you know, it'll be more of that real world data about, you know, how long I can realistically expect to spend on these things, you know, like, and frankly, that's actually more on point real world data because not one of my stories, not one of them is going to be set at San Diego. I mean, there will be some, you know, stories, I'm sure, because they're just people are people, and anywhere people are gathering, there's going to be a crowd. But crowd scenes won't be the norm. You know what I mean? Like, most of the time, it's going to be in space, dealing with, like, an alien planet or something like that. It won't be dealing with 21st century fashions and crowds and convention centers and things like that. So, like I said in the last update, this story is kind of like jumping into the deep end, and now I'm just trying to get through it and take as many lessons from it as I possibly can to apply to the future. I think the next short, the one that was supposed to be the first short, will actually be a better representation of what I can expect going into the series, you know, because it's a 100% Bury Me in Starfields, no nonsense story. And so how quickly that one gets completed will be a better barometer of what I can expect. But this is important too. This is like super important. So we're gonna finish it, get through it, and there you go. And that's the other thing. Back to the rewrites, in the process of the third and the fourth rewrite, the page count on this 5-page short story, which was originally 4 pages, has now ballooned to 10 pages. So I'm back to editing, and I'm like currently in the process of determining how much of that talky talk is necessary. And if I really need 10 pages, is it just bloat? You know what I mean? Like, so this is the area where having an actual editor might be a welcome thing. You know what I mean? Could come in and say like, you know what, this part, it's funny, but like, do we need it? You know what I mean? Like, it would be not the worst thing to have an outside voice, giving some feedback at this point. But I don't have that. And so I'm going to rely on myself and my knowledge of what I need to do and what I don't need to do, and make some hard decisions on some cuts or not. And we'll see what happens. To be determined. You'll find out about that as I find out about that. So, and I think that's about it for this weekend. So, I'm done recording this podcast. That was the last thing I needed to do before I get back to drawing. So I think I'm going to end this, go grab something to eat really quick, and then I'm going to get back to work on this first issue, this first short of Bury Me in Starfields that hopefully you guys will see very soon and not in a couple months. Let's all keep our fingers crossed for that, right? Okay, well, regardless, one way or the other, I'll see you all next week. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you on Monday. Bye.